Okay, so this is I'll call it a presentation, but it's more kind of a collection of thoughts and notes about one of my favorite kind of themes in films. You can't really call it a genre because so many films dip into it and use some of its ideas. It's more like a kind of ethos, or it can be like a character trait. But there's nothing that, like, I wouldn't ever say that it was like a category of films like horror or thriller or romance. It's just a kind of theme that some films can have. So yeah, what is existentialism? It's a form of philosophical inquiry that explores the problem of human existence. This would be like an academic kind of definition, and centers on the experiences of thinking and feeling and acting. But I would put why in front of all of those. Like, why do we think certain things? Why do we feel a certain way? And why do we act as we do? In the view of the existentialist, the individual's starting point has been called the existential angst. So that angst is a sense of dread, disorientation, confusion, or anxiety in the face of an apparently meaningless, absurd world. And to be honest, I think all of those words can just be squashed down into like a feeling of not belonging, or being on the outside, or feeling that your place in the world isn't really solid. And when you think about that, there's kind of, if you think of like teenage angst movies, which can be something like the Twilight Saga, has kind of elements of that. So kind of any kind of coming of age story like Stand By Me or something like that. They all have, or the Goonies, they all are Stranger Things, which is basically an extended remake of the Goonies. They all have an element of a group or an individual who feel like they're kind of removed from the rest of what's going on around them. So in coming of age stories, the society is often represented by the high school, and there's a group that's left out of that. So existentialist thinkers frequently explore issues related to the meaning, purpose, and value of human existence. So that's what existentialism is, but in the context of film. And then, as I said, like in my little pre-ramble, it's really hard to define what is or what isn't an existential movie. It's one that deals with a world and/or a life that is devoid of any preordained meaning, rules, or justice. It often deals with the confusing struggle to find a personal meaning in an absurd world that presents no trace of its own. But again, that's all very, very wordy. So Snoopy, the little dog, he had a moment of existential angst once, and I think he kind of summed it up better than all the kind of highbrow things that I found while doing a little bit of research for this presentation. Where am I going? What am I doing? What is the meaning of life? And I think that, in 3 short snippets, gives you everything that you need to know, especially the first 2, like, where am I going? What am I doing? And you could add, why am I doing it? And that's, to me, those are the themes that my favorite films kind of explore. So these are, if you went and studied film, these would be like the big 5 that come up in all the textbooks. And if you Google top 5 or top 20 existential films on Google, it doesn't matter if there's 10, 20, the top 50, these 5 will be in all of them, in all of those lists. Blade Runner is one of my favorite movies anyway. The Before trilogy, The Seventh Seal, and Ikiru, you probably won't have seen. Some of you might have seen Wild Strawberries. But The Seventh Seal is kind of a seminal piece of classic cinema as well. So I was about to find like lots of clips of all of them, like I've done for some of the rest, and then I found a video that dealt with, it covers all of them in one go. So I'm just going to play this video in its entirety, and it's 8 minutes long.
Cool. Cheers.
So yeah, like going back to what I said at the start, you could see in just those, and that's why I love these 5 to start things off with. You can see that they were totally different types of movies. Do you know what I mean? You've got a kind of a science fiction, a kind of bittersweet love story, a kind of surrealist historical movie, The Seventh Seal. It's maybe not even historical, it's completely made up, but set during the Crusades. And then this kind of real life study of a man who finds out that he's going to die and then starts taking stock of how he's lived his life, which is almost a bit Charles Dickens-y, like A Christmas Carol, kind of. And then lastly, Wild Strawberries. So all totally different kind of genres and themes and things, but with this underlying theme of existential angst.
I love for The Seventh Seal, he was just like, no, like, it's not a spoiler, of course, because like you can't cheat death. It's like, you also can't play chess with them.
Yeah.
So, like, how much does how they handled it in that film? maybe you could cheat death, but I guess.
What was where's me fancy thing gone? There it is. What was funny about the list though is it's like, do you know how everything on the internet just kind of gets recycled? So like somebody finds a list and then makes a video of the list, then someone sees the video and then makes a list of the video. Yeah. And like no one's like really and then I find all of those things and make a presentation and come and give it. Like what I noticed was that kind of this list is like, it's definitely just something that gets copied and pasted. Like is like, here's an example of 5 existential films because it's everywhere. But there's way better examples that I can't believe that people kind of miss out on. So I've jumped. So those are some great ones. But then you've got kind of really obvious ones that have far stronger existentialist themes. Wake and Life I put in there. And I will play the clip, like, but it's hard to describe Wake and Life if you haven't seen it because it's not a documentary, but it's not really a story. It's more just like a collection of one guy's thoughts, loosely based around lucid dreaming. Has anyone seen it?
I keep meaning to, but no, I haven't seen it.
It's a hard watch at times, but it quickly moves on to something more interesting. But at times, it's literally just a series of people talking about existentialism. Like, so does that make an existentialist movie? Like, I mean, in the clip that I found, like, it's literally a teacher telling a classroom about existentialism. So,
Alex Jones is in it, I know that.
Yeah, and it's like old school. It's like 90s Alex Jones. It's worth watching.
Whom I bet Linklater was a fan of as well, because in Slacker, everyone was just like, don't vote, like, they've already predetermined who the president's going to be.
Yeah. It's like, I'm a huge fan of Alex Jones as a character.
Yeah.
As like a caricature of a nutcase. And I think that's what he actually is as well. I don't think he believes most of what he says. I remember when I first saw Wake and Life, and I was kind of like, is that even like fiction, or is it just a series of people, of someone like telling you what they think about stuff? Yeah. And I think I saw it like around 2001 or 2002, and at the time the style and everything seemed really, really cool. Like but like on a second watch, you kind of like, and that the biggest bit of criticism that the movie got was that it was like it was a film made by somebody that couldn't put these ideas into like a fictional narrative, and there's the classic show don't tell, Like, so, you know, don't use too much narration, don't use too much exposition. Whereas this is almost just pure exposition. It's like, okay, this is what it's all about, you know.
Yeah.
Next, I put The Matrix. I thought of The Matrix because, yeah, the main character is kind of the common man, if a very intelligent one, trapped in a crappy job, and he's haunted by this feeling of existential nihilism. Like there's something more. There must be something more, and his life has no meaning. I'm maybe reading a bit more into it there, but yeah, has everyone seen The Matrix? Yeah, I thought so. So yeah, and then you know what happens. He discovers that there is, like, the whole world is a lie, and there is something way more important that he could be part of, and that becomes his true meaning. The next one I picked was Modern Times, which it's an old Charlie Chaplin movie.
Was on like 7.
Yeah? Ah, cool. Have you seen it?
Yeah, sure.
Ah, cool. I love...
I've seen it too.
Yeah, cool.
I think I've seen it, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of his more better known ones. But for me, it's like, this is...
Is this one, no?
I've
They're
not seen
scrolling,
it.
yeah.
And he goes after the woman. Yeah, that's brilliant. It's like, for the time that was so risque.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's in the clip that I wanted to show. But in this is like, I think and I don't know if Chaplin thought about existentialism, but he definitely thought about like the modern world and modernism. He definitely thought about that and what people's place is like in a modern society. And he's kind of not in control at all. Like, good things happen to him, bad things happen to him, but he's totally out of control, and he's just on a conveyor belt getting forced through life. And especially, I've never seen anything that illustrates the monotony of factory work as well, where at some point he literally becomes part of a machine. Like, I'm not sure if it's in the clip, but I think there's a bit where a cog falls off a machine, so he kind of braces himself into the machine and becomes like one of the cogs, and it's really literal, but it's really good.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Has anyone seen Into the Wild? No.
I know
So,
of it, but I've not seen it. Oh.
Yeah, I think it came out around 2005-ish or something. This is all stuff that I could have found out in advance and written next to the name.
Fail.
Yeah.
What year it came out? I'm out here.
And who directed it? It's a well-known actor who was married to Madonna, not Guy Ritchie.
Sean Penn.
Sean Penn directed it.
Robertsons are filled with useless celebrity facts.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think it was I included it. I think it's a good movie. Like, but the main reason I included it is because it's the only one I think that was on the list that's based on a true story. Apart from Modern Times, that's probably based on millions of people's lives. But yeah, it's a guy called Christopher McCandless that I think he changed his name to something like Christopher Supertramp or something like that when he went travelling. And he wrote a book about kind of wanting to get away from society and not live a normal life and just live in the wild and have a life of adventure. And it's pretty much a road movie of him travelling around, and he's always kind of happy once he's out of the city, and he's cut ties with his family, and he has no belongings and things like that. And then when he revisits the city, he just hates it. And he eventually goes up to live in Alaska, which he figures is as far away from anybody as he can be, and eventually dies. I didn't find a good clip of that, because it's a lot of, if you just imagine someone wandering about, that's the 90% of the movie. What have we got next? Yeah, and then there's two movies. One's called The Swimmer, and one's called The Interrogation. And I didn't put The Interrogation on the list because it's nothing to do with But I think they're two of the greatest kind of forgotten, lost movies that are around. Like when I watched The Swimmer, I was like blown away that this isn't a better known movie. Like amazing cast, directors, music, and just a fantastic story with a brilliant twist. But it's like completely forgotten. It's not even that old. I think it's from the 60s, the late 60s, early 70s.
I watched it when you told me about it.
You've seen it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's about this guy, and it starts off, and it all seems very normal, and he's just go visit somebody, and he has a nice chat with them. And then he realizes that between his house and the house that he's visiting, he knows everybody on the way. As he travels from one house to the next, he starts to remember things from his past and starts to get confused and like starts to unwind. And you realize that he's actually like had a mental breakdown by the time he gets home. But the angst by the end of it is kind of like unbelievably well portrayed, I think. We'll not watch that clip because it's like an entire scene, and it's really, really long, and you wouldn't get much from it.
But he's so charming, the main guy. You feel really bad for him.
Yeah.
It's really well acted.
And his breakdown is kind of like incredible. Like there's the clip that there was only like 20 seconds in the middle of it, and he's basically at a party, and at the party they've got like next to the pool this really cool kind of retro hot dog stand, like a 1950s hot dog stand at this party, and he's like, "This is mine." He's like, "This is my hot dog stand. I made this. I built this. How have you got it?" And the woman's like, "We bought it. It's not yours. It's ours." And he's like, and he's looking, and he's like so confused and so freaked out. And then as it progresses, you find out more about why she has it. The last one, Easy Rider. Probably a lot of you might have seen that. If not, check it out. It was part of like what got called counterculture films in the late 60s. And it was like a very big amongst kind of hippies and dropouts and people who were just into alternative culture. But it's seen more, like the two main characters, they're kind of really nihilistic. And the book it was based on, I think, was called something like The Outsiders, or no, The Loners. And it's really bleak in a way. And I think people see it as this kind of like fun kind of party film, like the Easy Riders, because they're like on Harley Davidsons and riding across America and getting drunk and getting high. But really, like everywhere they stop in like redneck towns where they're kind of chased away. They meet characters who are kind of down and out and sad. And yeah. And I included the driver. And again, I couldn't really find a good clip of that because it's just long kind of bits of a guy driving around the city. But you might have seen Drive in 2011, which, do you know when I did my soundtracks presentation, like I couldn't believe that I forgot about Drive, because it's like one of my favourite soundtracks of the last like 20, 30 years. I think it's amazing, and it's got loads of my favourite musicians on it, and I totally left it out. But yeah, this is like, I think this is one of the ultimate ones where it's following someone who kind of lives by their own set of rules, where they're kind of part of society, but it's like, I do this, and I do this, and I do this. And that's like, it's a bit sharper in the original one, but in the new one, Ryan Gosling's character, it's kind of really illustrated that he kind of lives alone and he works in this garage and he kind of doesn't need anybody. And when they ask him to come and do a getaway drive, he says, like, you have to call me between this time and this time. And you have me between this minute and this minute. And if your guy's late, or if only one guy gets in the car, then I drive away and you never see me again. And like, so these are like his stiff rules that he lives by. And lastly on the list, I just put like the work of Jim Jarmusch. Yeah. Jarmusch. but yeah, like a lot of his films like have this kind of like A Night on Earth, Down by Law. A lot of them have this kind of bleak, angsty feel to them. But I think it's best illustrated in Broken Flowers, and that's a great movie. That's kind of it's Bill Murray is the main actor, and he gets a letter one day, basically saying you have a son. Like so. And that's all the information that it holds. It's just like you have a son, and it doesn't say who it's from, where it's from. So basically, he just figures out like all the women that he's had relationships with, and decides he's going to have to go one by one to check if they have children, and if she's the one that has the letter, and like and it's obviously like turns his whole world upside down. So whatever he kind of had going on in his life just suddenly has to stop, and he now has this new thing that he's like passionate about. And everyone that he goes to visit is a very different situation. It's like wildly different from the next. And Dead Man, I think I've talked about before, but that's about a man slowly dying from an injury while traveling through like the Wild West in America. But yeah, that's pretty much the end of my presentation.
Nice.
I didn't
Good
have
recommendation.
much else. Thank you.